Classroom A, so MISTI, video 2. We're still talking about week 1 stuff here. I didn't finish it in the previous video, so we're gonna go just through the rest of it quickly. Also, I'll be answering some questions that were posted on the group. Edward posted a few questions, and Raz also posted a question, which we'll be getting to just now. Okay, having a look at the rest of the week 1 stuff that we didn't get to. There's Tsukumogami, which are it's the Shinto belief that objects after 100 years or so, take on a life of their own. They gain some kind of sentience, and they do stuff. They become kind of like servitors, I guess, bound to a physical object, which is something that we do when we're creating servitors. Well, I mean, we can do it, it's an option, but I think it's a good thing to do, because it adds a physical kind of component, a base to the servitor, which is useful because you always have it. It makes the servitor a lot more kind of tangible and easy to connect with and easy to communicate with, because you can just talk to the object that the servitor is housed in, or kind of linked to, or tethered to. And if you have a look back, you'll see stories like the story about the genie that lives in the lamp, and this Shinto Tsukugami with the objects that are kind of sentient and alive. In mythology and in folklore across the world, again, you'll find many examples of material objects that kind of gain a sentience or a life of their own. It's not an uncommon idea, and you can even tie it in with fetishes and totems and holy objects, or I mean, there's many times where a physical object becomes more than that, more than just that. It becomes a symbol, a representation of something else. And of course, when you're tying it to your servitor, you would want to find something that aligns with the intent of the servitor, something that aligns with the current of what you're trying to do with the servitor. So you'd need something that does that. And another bonus of having some kind of physical base for the servitor is that it can become almost like the blueprint or something. Because what that does is should the servitor be influenced by external forces, say some other chaos mage or some other servitor or some other kind of current changing your servitor, or altering it to some extent, you have that physical base which remains static and remains the foundation for the servitor itself, which is unchanged because it's there, it's on your altar or whatever, and it stays the same. So that is a good way to kind of give solidarity to your servitor, to keep it safe, to make it easy to access, to add correspondences that align with the intent of the servitor. So yeah, it's a great idea. I mean, I can't see any disadvantage to it. The only thing is that if somebody gets hold of it, I suppose they could take it from you or whatever. But that's not likely to happen. And also, having these physical things being more than that in your mind, I guess. Having it being the house of the servitor does take it over that line of being a mundane thing into something magical, which is what magic is all about, really. I mean, that's all we're doing. That's all we're doing, essentially. Like with servitors, or with tarot decks or sigils or anything like that, there is a point where it stops being just a piece of cardboard with some ink on it, or a sigil is just some ink on a piece of paper, and it becomes something else. And of course, this is the trick. This is the sleight of mind that we pull to make magic, because I mean, there is nothing There is nothing. It is just ink and paper. Just like millions of other pieces of ink on paper, but for some reason, it's different. It's magical. And it's because we think so, because we believe so, because we buy into the construct that this is how it works, like sigils as well. I mean, sigils is, this is it. We buy into the chaos magic paradigm, and that's what makes the magic. So, I mean, it's the same with servitors, really. There seems to be some kind of gap between doing chaos magic sigils or whatever other chaos magic thing you want to do, and servitors. I mean, they're considered kind of more advanced and more difficult and potentially, I suppose, more dangerous to make and to control than the other stuff. But that's also part of the paradigm. I mean, if you buy that, if you invest in that, then that's what you'll get. It's the same with any kind of chaos magic. I mean, one of the reasons why I'm putting a lot of text in the first few weeks in this course is because I want to provide a nice firm foundation, an understanding of how these things work, and to kind of open up the ideas about magic and servitors and how we kind of relate to the world and do magic. I know a lot of people what they're looking for are a simple formula or a spell or something like that says if you do X then you'll have a servitor, which is great, and it's true and it works, but there's no particular truth in that. It's just that this is what you think, this is what you believe in. I mean, of course, that's the base of the chaos magic paradigm. And well, anyway, in week 1 we're looking at servitors and what are servitors, what are they made of, and how do they come about, and stuff like that. And it's a really deep question. We could look at it for the whole 3 months, depending on how deep you want to go on it. But like I said, most people, I suppose, just want a formula, a spell to make a servitor. If you do these steps, then you'll get a servitor, and that's it. Which is true and great, but I mean, I think there's a lot more value in understanding or at least having a look at the mechanics behind it and why it all works. And this foundation applies not only to servitors, of course, but to the whole of chaos magic, really, or any kind of magic, I suppose. So I think that's a valuable thing to look at and a valuable thing to kind of approach, because it allows us to be a lot more fluid and change our perspectives and use belief as a tool more efficiently, more cleanly, which is cool. But yeah, I mean, like I said, week 1, looking at what servitors are and how they're made, it's an incredibly deep question. We can go all the way down, depending on the perspective, the angle that you take. You can go all the way down to kind of what is anything really, and that is the thing. Yeah, so if you think about servitors and the fact that they kind of seem to have a separate intelligence, some kind of agency of their own, where they can discern and they can make decisions and they can gain experience and gather skill and gather power over time and kind of change and grow. It's a really, really interesting thing, and it's I think it's really exciting. I mean, it's really cool. It just shows how much we can do with magic and how much we can do with servitors and stuff. I mean, it's mind-blowing, because essentially these are living things. We are creating life. I mean, it's ridiculous, in just how incredible it is. It's amazing, and it's useful, and these things can become very powerful and quite scary, I suppose, if you think about the ethics of it. I mean, if these things have some kind of agency, if they have kind of goal and some kind of decision-making thing, some kind of sentience, we have some kind of ethical or moral responsibility, maybe, to make sure that they're, don't suffer, or that they're kind of taken care of and happy to some extent, I suppose. and that's interesting, because there's a line where people use a lot of servitors and stuff for offensive magic, for attacking people and doing damage and harmful stuff, and people attacking each other's servitors and so on. And I suppose it's kind of weird to kind of think, feel bad about these things, or kind of regret that they get hurt or anything like that. And I suppose it is, once again, the paradigm that you buy into, the idea that these things have kind of some feeling, or are able to suffer in some way. That's just an interesting. Oh, that was weird. My computer kind of started shutting down there. I've had some issues with it lately. It's been shutting down randomly, so anyway. Alright, so let's look back at the week 1 stuff. You got a little bit sidetracked there. Alright, the game, the Gathering of 101 Supernatural Tales. That's really interesting, and it shows how easy it is to kind of create these things. There's a very particular kind of feeling that people get when they share creepy stories, and they kind of get creeped out and stuff, and that's an interesting thing, because it is an altered state of consciousness to some extent. It is a like kind of trance state, and that is a lot more conducive to making magic and making servitors and stuff like that, because our regular kind of state of consciousness has the filters and the consciousness in the way that seems to prevent magical stuff from happening mostly. That's a whole story, but altered states of consciousness, heightened states of emotion, anything that kind of removes the cognitive filter to some extent, takes us out of mind for a bit. Those are all very powerful states for creating magic, and being in this creepy, scared, heightened emotional state is one of them. So that's quite cool. Anthropomorphizing, that's a powerful thing, and it's pretty good. Gears, that's an interesting thing also. The conditional curse that allows us to add substance to our servitors. Like I was saying, when you have a physical base for your servitor and somebody gets hold of it, you might experience some kind of fear or anxiety that people will change it or whatever. And that is a kind of conditional curse, that you need to keep this thing safe and that you need to respect it and so on. Any kind of rules like that, any kind of idea that has some kind of negative consequences like that, or those all add magic. They all add weight and will and intent to the thing, which is cool. I mean, if that's what you want to make. The trick is not to go overboard with these things, because you don't want to bind yourself too much, or just choose really obscure ideas that are not likely to happen. Like with the story of the golem, it's not allowed to be alive on the Sabbath day. That was something that ended up not working well, because you know the story if you read what I've posted here. That kind of thing is useful, and taking it seriously kind of makes it a lot more solid, which is useful sometimes. Okay, now we're on. You're looking at the different things: tulpas, thought forms, egregores. Egregores are really interesting, and this is one of the questions that was posted in the group. Let's have a look over here. Edward says he's got some questions. Mentioned something about people possibly doing some intentional harm to her. So Misty, can I or someone who doesn't quite know what they're doing harm her by accident? Not really. I mean, I've taken a lot of precautions when I made her to make sure that she's safe and kind of resilient. I don't think it's possible to really harm her. Of course, I have things in place that can shut the whole thing down if it starts getting out of control. And I think that's really the only way to do that, to harm her. I've created her in a way that she is resilient, and that she can kind of maintain herself to some extent. So even if she is attacked, or if she is altered or infected with something in some way, she is able to fix that by herself. And then also, like I mentioned, I have the material components which I keep safe, which is kind of the blueprint, the foundation of her, which can always kind of override anything that's done to her and create her again. But yeah, there's many layers of kind of redundancy and mitigation that I've built into some MISTI. So I think she's pretty okay. I don't see how anybody could harm her. And also, the only condition that I've really given her in her abilities is that she cannot target herself. So she is not able to be used against herself, because that would be a very powerful way to destroy her. And of course, that is not something that she will do. Okay, and another question is, what is the difference between a group servitor, a meme, and an egregore? Is it just scale? Well, by definition, an egregore is kind of a group consciousness. When a bunch of people get together and have a common intent or a common goal or a common kind of thing that they're working together, that's kind of an egregore. That's what gathers. It's the group mind, it's the group kind of will of all these people being put together that kind of takes on a life of its own. And it kind of makes a groove, it kind of makes a current or a momentum of its own that you will find. New people that come into the group will kind of find themselves falling in line with that. It becomes like a kind of a thought form, a really powerful kind of thought form by itself that is quite effective. CMG has its own egregore, its own group mind, which is fantastic, and you can see that it's got its own kind of energy and its own kind of current that work. And that can be used. It can be used like a servitor to some extent, as long as kind of, if you try and steer it or you try and direct it, as long as it's kind of in line with the intent, with the main kind of energy, the current of the thing itself, then it should be okay. CMG is a little bit dangerous in that, there's some trolling and there's a little bit of nastiness in there, and there's a little bit of irreverence and kind of disrespect and stuff like that. So it might not be obedient if you try and use the CMG egregore itself. I've worked with it to some extent, and it can be done, but it's better not to try and force it, because then it gets upset. So interesting. But yeah, anything, churches or big corporations or countries or anything like that, kind of egregores, schools, any kind of groups of people who have a common thing that they work together, those are all egregores. And but yeah, it does kind of gain a life of its own, and that is a servitor to some extent. Servitors can become egregores when enough people kind of invest in it and work with it. It does kind of become a lot bigger and a lot more powerful, and it becomes more of a group thing, which also makes it a lot more resilient and keeps it around and a lot more powerful. Makes it a lot less vulnerable to attack and change and so on. So like the Alice sigil, that's become an egregore to some extent now, because a lot of chaos magicians use it, and that's pretty cool. A group servitor, meme, and an egregore. Okay, so we've spoken about a group servitor would basically be like a small egregore. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And a meme, well, everything's memes. Memes are everything. Everything's memes. We are memes. Everything's memes. memes are thoughts that are ideas that kind of transmit from people to other people. Yeah, everything's memes. Everything. Servitors, everything's memes, because everything's an idea. Every kind of perception that we have is influenced. Every kind of idea we have is a meme to some extent, and we transmit them to each other. That's what I'm doing now. I'm talking to you. You know what I mean? I'm giving you my memes in my head, which is great. So yeah, they're not necessarily bad, and they're but yeah, servitors are memes, egregores are memes, everything's memes. But I suppose servitors and egregores are a step up from memes in that they do gain some kind of sentience. Although I think memes have that to some extent. I think we are the medium for memes, and we're kind of that's what we do. We're like the host for memes, and they're the other thing that kind of lives in our brain and spreads itself around. Yeah, no, memes are fascinating. I can talk about that forever. They're great. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. How do I know that I've created her, so MISTI, and haven't simply discovered her? How can I be certain? Well, I don't know, and I don't think it really matters. I think I think the archetype that she represents is always has been around forever. So in that way, you know, I've just kind of discovered her. But this current kind of form that I've chosen for her, and the symbol, this anthropomorphized kind of face and sigil and stuff that I've given her, is new, and that's I've made. But it's just a face. It's just an interface to deal with this archetype, this current, which has been around forever. So I suppose it's a bit of both, you know. Where did the 100 voices come from? Alright. The 100 voices for Some Misty comes from the idea that she replicates. Some Misty, the word is mitosis. The idea with her is that I've tried to tap into the current of life itself, which is something. So the 100 voices are her. She replicates. There are a lot of her. Every time she is used, she makes another one of herself. And the idea is that she's basically a network. She's a whole connected network, like the neurons in our brain. You know, they've got all these tentacles that connect to the other ones, and they will form this kind of web, this network of connection. And the 100 voices are those individual Some Misties all talking at the same time. That's where the 100 voices comes from. All right. And then Rose says, what are the guidelines for keeping a servitor on a long-term basis? Well, well, mainly feeding. I mean, you'd need some kind of stable. You'd need some kind of stable foundation, some kind of stable current for it to build from. You need some kind of focus that was stable, that wasn't just a once-off kind of thing. If you align the servitor to an archetypal current or something that's been around, I mean, it should stick around, you know. And as long as it feeds and you keep on kind of working with it, then it should stay around. Because every time you access it, every time you talk about it, every time somebody else does that, you know, they kind of define it and they make it, really, to some extent. They add to the definition of it, which is cool. Because yeah, so I mean, a lot of people, I think, make servitors, you know, once off and then forget about it, or they talk to it, you know, a little while and then they forget about it, and it kind of dissolves. And things that don't have an active purpose, a servitor that you keep around just in case, like a protection servitor or something like that. And then if you don't, you know, you make it, and then if it doesn't get used for a while, it'll just kind of dissipate by itself. But if you have something that actively works every day and that you talk to, and you know, it's feeding and it's growing, then I mean, it should stay around indefinitely, really. In the traditional African religion, which is really interesting, they've got this whole thing about spirits that the Sangomas, the witch doctors, I suppose, use. And some of these are ancient, hundreds of years old, and they get passed down from family to family, from you know, generation to generation. So these same spirits have been around for hundreds of years, you know, and they become really powerful and interesting. And yeah, I mean, we can do the same thing with our servitors, I guess. There's no kind of time limit to them. As long as they kind of are defined and they're used, they should stick around forever. Yeah? Okay, so that, I think, are the questions that were asked, as far as I can see. I hope that answers them well, and I was clear. All right. I'm kind of running out of time now, and this is going on. Yeah, so I'm going to have to make a third video to finish up the week one stuff. All right, thanks. Have a good day.